Okay.
because I didn't.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the August 24, 2020 Lake Washington School Board meeting. Let the record reflect that all board members are present and participating remotely. All meeting participants will also be joining this meeting remotely in alignment with the current proclamation issued by Governor Inslee. The board meeting will be live streamed and viewable on the district's website. If you are unable to live stream the meeting, viewers can call at 425-936-2813, conference ID 37127. And by dialing that number, you'll be able to listen to the meeting. Regular board meetings will continue to be live streamed on the Lake Washington School District website and posted for viewing within 2 days. I will now entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this August 24th meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Bleasner that we approve the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed, hearing none, the motion carries and the agenda is approved. On our non-consent agenda for tonight is the 2020-2021 budget, the district's 2020-2021 equity efforts, and a return to school task force update. Before we get to that, the first item on the agenda tonight is public comment. Due to the coronavirus, all board meetings are being held remotely. Please note that there will be no in-person public comment to ensure social distancing. The Board of Directors of the Lake Washington School District welcomes the public to the business meetings of the board and encourages community engagement. The board dedicates 30 minutes at each of these meetings to hear from the public during a public comment period. Currently, there are 3 options to submit public comment: written, orally, and by televised public comment. Do I have, and I apologize, I do not have the instructions for providing written public comment, but my memory serves me correct. Diane, correct me if I'm wrong. To submit written public comment to the board, we're asking that those who are interested email you at djenkins@lwsd.org. Okay, that's great. Thank you. And similarly, if you are wanting to provide oral public comment or through this meeting, we ask that you do the same and provide notice you want to do that in advance of the meeting. So at this time, we have one community member signed up to give us televised public comment, and that is Elisa Sang. And Diane, are you able to admit her to the meeting?
Yes, they've been admitted to the meeting.
Excellent. Oh, and there we are. Good evening, Ms. Sang. So we generally allow 3 minutes for public comment. I don't have my timer in front of me, but just try to keep it to about 3 minutes tonight. And thank you so much for joining us and for taking the time out of your night to call in.
Sure, thanks for having me. Good afternoon, school board members. My name is Elisa Sang, and I am the mother of a high schooler in Redmond. I am speaking to express my wish for policing-free schools in our district. Specifically, I'm asking the board move to end the SRO system. I would like to see this done in the context of our entire LWSD community coming together to rework our police department's relationship with our schools. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about what he considered the 3 evils in society: militarism, racism, and poverty. SRO systems are manifestations of 2 of these, militarism and racism. Historically and ironically, there's been a lack of education regarding the reality of policing in our schools. I myself had been unaware of the dark nature of SRO systems up until recently. I understand now there exists some misconceptions surrounding SRO programs. Those being that SROs keep our kids safer at school and that students feel safer and less fearful at schools with SROs. Both of these misperceptions have been disproven by social scientists in various studies, and studies show that Black kids suffer the most under SRO programs. Currently, there is a heightened awareness in our community about the inherently punitive and discriminatory nature of SRO programs. And now that our community knows better, we are doing better. There is already an online petition circulating in the community titled "No More Police in Lake Washington Schools." I would like to see our school board adopt the hopeful example set by Minneapolis, Portland, and Denver school boards who have all recently decided to remove SROs in their schools. Many citizens in Phoenix, New York, and Chicago are also presently petitioning and lobbying their school boards to do the same. Here closer to home, Seattle and Edmonds school districts have also just voted to remove SRO systems in their schools. Toronto, which is the largest school district in Canada, is seen as a model to follow for our American schools post-SRO. Toronto decided to remove their SROs in 2017. This happened after 15,000 students were surveyed and 2,000 of the students reported that they felt intimidated, targeted, or watched by SROs. And since the removal of the SROs, the last few years has seen a drop in suspensions and expulsions in Toronto schools. Now the Toronto Police Department manages what are called school engagement teams, which are made up of officers who are assigned to multiple schools. These officers work at building positive relationships with students, try and gather intelligence about what's going on in their schools, prevent crime. The big difference is the officers are not embedded in the schools. A wave of positive revolutionary change is happening in many school communities. Similarly, it is our community's moment in time to decide if we want to uphold an inherently militant, oppressive, racist system or transform the SRO system into one that can not only really help our kids and keep them safer, but maybe also inspires them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your time too. Really appreciate you appearing to give us your comments rather than us just having to read them. And Ms. Sang, you also submitted written public comment. I wanted to acknowledge that we received that, and that will be part of the record too, and we posted to the district's website under the board meeting for today. So thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate the time.
We've also received 2 written public comments for tonight. I will read them both aloud, and they will also be available on the district's website. I have a 3-year-old who's getting closer and shouting, so I may have to pass this off if he comes in here. Okay, the first is from Haneen Ismaili. The comment reads, "Hi, my name is Haneen. I am a senior at Eastlake High School. My experience at Eastlake High School has been full of disappointment. The blatant racism, discrimination, and microaggressions perpetuated by the students, along with the transparent ignorance of the staff and faculty, is bound to have impacted every single person of color attending EHS. The videos of all these racist LWSD students surfacing recently is the first. These kids have always been racist, only their racism has always been tolerated. I'm calling for LWSD to do better in expanding resources for all POC, people of color, and LGBTQ students, along with making sure the history and material we are taught isn't based on the whitewashed agenda we've been learning for years." The second public comment is from Abby Hu. "My name is Abby Hu, and I'm a rising senior attending Eastlake High School. From the July 13th board meeting until now, it does not seem that the LWSD board and LWSD collectively are putting forth a plan to push for equity throughout the entire district at all levels. School starts in about 1 week. How is LWSD planning to enter the school year amplifying, listening, respecting, and validating marginalized voices, not only in a virtual environment, but sustaining that to when we go back to in-person learning? I don't have much to say because having been a student in LWSD for the past 12 years, I am continually let down by the performative allyship of those at the school and district level collectively. This is my senior year, and I will work to amplify voices to make change in LWSD. I have held my experiences in for far too long. No one to tell, not even my parents, because they tell me to quote, just take it, don't talk back. This is how it is for us. I want to make sure there are safe spaces where BIPOC and LGBTQIA+ students can go to where they know their voices are heard and feel empowered. To the all-white district board, get comfortable feeling uncomfortable." Those are the public comments we received tonight. Thank you to everyone who took the time to write to the board and to also join us at the meeting tonight. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the August 24 consent agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
It's moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Sage that we approve the consent agenda. Dr. Holman, will you please poll the board?
Yes.
Yes.
He's on mute. Chris, you want to try that again?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Dr. Holman, will you please summarize the donations?
Individuals for continuing to support the school district even during the summer months, knowing that the majority of our donations come in during the school year, but we greatly appreciate the private source donation coming in to support our students.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. Our first item on the non-consent agenda is the 2021 is Resolution 2298 for the 2020-2021 budget. Dr. Holman, would you please lead us through that?
Absolutely. So at the June 22 board meeting, a full detailed presentation was made on the 2021 budget. At the August 10 board meeting, a public hearing on the budget was held. I will ask Barbara Postmus, Associate Superintendent of Business and Support Services, and Chris Brannigan, if he's here and available, Director of Business Services, to present the 2021 budget for adoption this evening.
Good evening. I'll go ahead and talk about the budget adoption tonight. As Dr. Holman said, we had the detailed presentation in June. We had a public hearing at our last board meeting on August 10th and opened it up for a public hearing. And we did not receive any comments the evening of the meeting between August 10th and tonight. We received one question on the budget, just wanting to know when the budget would be adopted and how enrollment and teacher salaries were part of the budget. So those questions were answered. We have received no additional comments on the budget at this time. So just a reminder that the board is actually approving what's called our F-195 budget. That is the official budget, the state format that you're adopting. And the resolution sets out the amount of each fund and also provides for the set aside of our economic stabilization that is in our budget as well. So, and it also, the F-195 budget sets the amounts of our levies that we also request each year from our community. So, any questions?
I don't think so. This is the, Director Blazner.
I just had one question. As we get the new enrollment numbers, as this plays out with the school year and knowing that it's somewhat a new experience as to how it plays, is how are we making sure that we're aligning enrollment with budget, and what happens if our enrollment projections aren't in line?
Yeah, great question. So districts around the state are monitoring their enrollment very closely, given our unique environment with COVID and remote learning. And so we are doing the same thing. And we always monitor our enrollment so that we don't overhire staff. But we are in an unusual situation. We are seeing some declines, some unusual declines in our elementary enrollment. We're down approximately 300 students than what we expected right now. So we will continue to monitor those numbers because we really don't know how many students will be here until we start school next Tuesday. So, and our official count date isn't till October 1st. We count students every month, but the true official count date doesn't happen until October 1st. So we will continue to monitor those numbers. Should our enrollment be lower than we expected, we also usually then end up spending less on the staff, because when you have a higher enrollment, you hire more staff. When you have lower enrollment, you're not hiring as many staff. So we have a study session scheduled in October to review any budget impacts related to enrollment changes or other changes that may be impacted by COVID. So we're going to continue to monitor it and share information with the board for next steps.
Excuse me, I had to turn my microphone on this end too. Can you talk about Director Bleasner's question in relation to the secured funds that we set aside, and then also what do we do if there's declining enrollment, which means less revenue coming in? Like, how do we bridge that gap?
Right. So in the spring, we looked at knowing that there's going to be a lot of unknowns this fall in potential enrollment declines, potential legislative action given the economic situation, legislative budget cuts. We know that leave policies, there's been new leave policies for COVID. And so all of those things impact both revenues and expenditures. And so we went ahead and part of this budget adoption will set aside some of our fund balance, and that's the funds, our fund balance, and reserve 40 million of those funds to hopefully offset some of those impacts. And then it will give us time to then realign, because we will need to realign our revenues and our expenditures for an ongoing basis. And so having that economic reserve will help until we can do a full analysis and realignment of our revenues and expenditures.
Any other questions from board members? Okay. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
Just for the community at home, this is either the third or the fourth presentation we've had on the budgets, and the board has asked questions of staff before. Okay. I will now entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2298, officially adopting the 2020-2021 budget.
Move approval
So
of
moved.
the Resolution 2298.
Second.
Okay. Mark, I think you said one at the same time as Chris. I'll take yours as the second. It has been moved by Director Carlson. It has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Stewart that we adopt Resolution 2298, officially adopting the 2020-2021 budget as presented. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously and the budget is adopted. Thank you, everyone, for the hard work on this. The next item on the agenda tonight for the non-consent agenda is the 2020-2021 district equity efforts. Dr. Holman, could you please present this for the board?
Yes, and because I had to restart the computer right before the meeting, I'm just pulling that presentation up on this end. So if I can just have a moment. Okay. Okay, you should be able to see that now. And I just want to also express appreciation for all of the public comment that we've received over the last few months, really, related to our district supporting equity efforts, racial equity work and inclusion. Really, every student has the right to have an accessible education, to be included in their school, to feel safe and welcome in their schools and in their community and in their classrooms with their peers. And so tonight, I just wanted to update the board on a number of efforts that we are engaged in around supporting our equity, racial equity, and inclusion work in Lake Washington, provide some framework for how we're talking about it with both our administrators and our staff, and then actually talk about some of the specifics of the work, knowing that this is work that will be ongoing forever. It is our obligation to make sure that we are always analyzing and taking action on our systems so that students can access their education. And so it's important to note that all of our equity work is in alignment with our mission and vision. And I know we've spent a lot of time talking about our mission in terms of each student graduating, but I also want to talk about that second half of our mission. When you think about a student graduating, prepared to lead a rewarding and responsible life as a contributing member of our community and greater society, we have an obligation to provide students with space and context to actually have dialogue around issues. And when you think about students actually dialoguing with one another, with a teacher facilitating that conversation, focused on race and equity and the conversation about race going on across our country, those are challenging conversations. But if we truly are helping our students become ready for their future, then I think it's important that we actually have those meaningful dialogue as our students are within our school district, so that as they leave our school district, they actually can bring those values, that ethic around all people being equal within our communities and all people having opportunity and access, whether it's within our school system or any system within our society. And then I think about our vision. Every student future ready. If we truly are to have students be ready for their future, it's important that they understand how to engage with peers that may have different backgrounds, different cultural experiences, of different races. Those are critically important aspects to our students being future ready. And so I know we talk a lot about our mission and vision, about graduation and being prepared for college and the global workplace, but it's also about preparing students for those rich, engaging conversations, actually being uncomfortable in conversations, understanding, empathizing around issues of race and equity. And so when I think about creating students that are ready for their community, prepared for their future, this is an aspect that we want to think about as well. But it's also about our values, and these values come from our strategic plan. And you can see here a focus on students, learning, connections, and results. And these really are values for every student that we serve. And so when you think about everything we do is focused on our students, it's about rich curriculum in inclusive classrooms. And when you think of an inclusive classroom, there are students in our system right now that don't feel safe and included in our classrooms. And so it's important that our equity, racial equity, and inclusion work actually focuses on making sure that our systems and our schools and our classrooms are inclusive for each and every student. Our focus on learning, that we set rigorous, high-achieving goals for each and every one of our students, and that we provide the resources and supports necessary so that students can achieve those high learning outcomes. And connections. We know that engaging with our community around issues of race, issues of equity, issues of learning and success and inclusion, that's important so that our organization can really develop an understanding of how we can best serve our community. And then focusing on results. Every student can achieve excellence. Every student can achieve greatness. And so our focus on results isn't just for results' sake, but it's actually because we believe every student we serve can achieve at high levels, which is going to make our community a better place, make our country a better place, because students are leaving our system prepared for their futures. I want to also start by just providing an overview of the racial makeup of our school district. It's a point of discussion often, and so I just wanted to remind the board as we're thinking about all of this work, the students that make up our school district. And so you can see here, we have our American Indian Alaska Native. It's less than 1%. And I would also argue that that makes it even at times more challenging for those students to feel safe and included in our schools. And so when we think about our efforts, we have to be intentional to make sure that those students, our American Indian, Alaska Native, feel safe and included, and that they can show up in our schools, and that they don't have to leave anything at the door to be a part of our classrooms. We have about 30% of our students reporting that they are Asian. Just under 2% of our students reporting that they are Black or African American. About 10.5% of our students reporting that they are either they're Hispanic or Latino of any races. And we do have a Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander population. Again, it's a small percent of our overall number, but we're happy to report that we do have a thriving population of Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islanders in our school district. We have students that report that they actually are 2 or more races, and so that is undefined for us which races they are reporting, but for them, how they present is actually represented in multiple races. And then we have 49% of our students that report that they are white or Caucasian. And so I love this quote because I think it allows all of us to grow while also providing a call for urgency. And Maya Angelou says, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." And so when I think about the national narrative, when I think about the scenes that we have seen play out on the TV over the last number of months, when I think about the global pandemic and how that just exposed inequities in our systems, and we can do better. And so tonight's presentation is step 1 in us thinking about how can we do better, not just in the long term, but also in the short term. And so why the term each that we use in our mission and our vision? And so when you think about that, in order to personally thrive and achieve greatness, each student must feel safe and welcome for who they are, and they also must have access to support and challenge for who they are becoming. So it's about who they are today, but it's also about how are we helping them grow to become who they want to be. And so that's an important aspect to our work. It's also that in order to be a contributing member of a dynamic and pluralistic society, that each student must be able to take perspective and empathize with others from diverse backgrounds and cultures. It isn't just about being able to talk with or engage with a peer that has a different racial or cultural background, but it's actually being able to understand their perspective that they are bringing to that conversation and that dialogue within our classrooms when we are talking about content, math, history, English, language arts, science. All of these different perspectives that come into the classroom actually make all of our students better because it allows them to actually consider, empathize, and gain a perspective that they may not have had before. But it's also to be able to consider others and show a desire to contribute to the well-being of school and community. And so by allowing students the opportunity to empathize and actually truly consider other people's perspective, it does contribute to that well-being of the school and the overall community. This is a pretty busy graphic, and so I just want to, what's the purpose of this graphic? It's about becoming while doing, so knowing that we want to become a better organization, a better system, one that supports all students, one that doesn't have predictable data outcomes. And so we want to become that, but we also have to have the urgency to actually take steps today that while we're going through that personal growth, while we're going through that systems growth, that we also are actually taking action today. And I love that phrase on the bottom, creating hope for all, that we are becoming while doing. We are assessing, we're reflecting, we're planning and implementing change in the context of being a learning leader, but also a learning organization, in creating hope for all. Every person that we serve deserves the opportunity to be hopeful for their future, hopeful for their outcomes, hopeful for their child. And so this allows us to think about all of our work as we move forward. Another way that we think about our work is the golden circle. So really honing in on what we call our why, our fundamental purpose as an organization. And so there's three distinct parts to the golden circle: the what, how, and the why. And the what we do is that we educate students. How do we do that? We implement high-quality teaching and learning that addresses the needs of all students. And when you think about high-quality teaching and learning, it's about the teacher, but it's not just about the teacher. Think about everything that it takes for a student to actually receive benefit from their classroom teacher's instruction, and it takes everybody, all adults, our community, making sure that students have access, that they feel safe walking into their classroom so that they can benefit and learn from their teacher. And our why. We are mission-driven, and we believe that our work creates a better world and is always focused on our students. And when I talked with our administrators and I talked with our staff, administrators earlier this August, our staff just this morning, I thought this is good, but I also want to expand on it just a little bit more. The what we do, I think we actually do a little bit more than just educate, because I actually believe we change lives. I believe we actually tilt trajectories. We actually have the opportunity to work with students to actually provide them with that hope, that vision for excellence, that opportunity to achieve their greatness. And we provide hope for our students, our community, our families, and we love our students unconditionally. Our students come to us with the best of themselves, and it is our job to love them and provide them the supports necessary so that they can grow. And then how do we do it? We do it by addressing systems that marginalize, being able to actually analyze and understand the systems within our school district that have marginalized certain populations and addressing those, because every group of students, every individual student deserves to have the full access to our school system. We do it by providing excellent instruction to every student. One of the things I said to staff this morning is that high-quality instruction is equity work. Because when you think about having rigorous curriculum that every student has access to, that every student has the highest of excellent standards for them, and that we're holding students accountable to those high benchmarks, that is equity work. Because then we're not providing one thing for one student and another thing for another student, but every student receives that high-level, excellent instruction. And we do it by creating spaces where individuals can show up. And when I say show up, it means that I can bring myself, my culture, who I really am into our classrooms, and that is perfect for that classroom because I'm being who I am. And we do it by tending to the social and emotional well-being needs of students, because we know our students at times struggle with mental health and engagement with peers, and so we actually pay attention to that work as well. And we do it by committing to the success of our organization, ensuring that we are fully analyzing our systems to make it better for all of our students. And we do it by engaging our community as partners, because we know as we engage with our parents, as we listen to them, as we hear from them, we can actually learn and actually address organizational issues, systems. We can bring them in to be partners with us in their child's work. And then why? Why do we do this work? Well, we do it because we believe each child can achieve greatness. And when I say each child, I mean each and every child. All 31,000 plus students can achieve greatness, regardless of any factor: race, ethnicity, income levels. We believe every student can achieve greatness. And then when we think about if our what, our how, and our why are connected and articulated to students, then our actions should always communicate the following: that each child's success matters to me. As an individual employee in Lake Washington, each child's success matters to me. That each child's success matters to our school. That an individual's success actually matters to that school community. And that each child's success matters to our district. The outcomes, the achievement of excellence, it does matter to our overall district. And that each child's success does matter to the community, because when every child is successful, our communities actually are richer and overall better. And each child's success just matters. And so those are the things that should be communicated when we actually have our what, how, and why articulated to students. And so I want to talk a little bit about the purpose of equity. You may have seen some of this written documentation before, but it's really to ensure that academic success for all students by closing opportunity gaps for students and providing equitable and inclusive working and learning environments for all students, families, staff, and communities. And that by committing to equity, we will remove the predictability of success and failure that currently correlates with race or any social cultural factors. I talked about that a little bit before, that the predictability in our data, our goal is that there is no predictability, so that all students are being successful, and that when students do struggle, it isn't predicted by race and other factors, but it's because they're struggling and we can provide that support. But by committing to equity, it also interrupts inequitable practices, examine biases, and create inclusive school environments for all students, and discover and cultivate the unique gifts, talents, and interests that every human possesses. And I'll talk a little bit about the idea of assets later in this presentation, but when you think about every student is bringing assets into the classroom, that as educators, we actually can capitalize on those assets. We can build upon those assets to make the classroom richer, but also to help that student grow and learn. And when we think about the overall equity work in Lake Washington School District, I talk about it in three kind of buckets that really are all interrelated. And when you think about the racial equity work, the national dialogue right now is very focused on issues of race, and rightfully so. And so we also want to pay attention to issues of race within our school district, because when you look at our data, we know that race is a predictor within our data. And so thinking about race, understanding race, knowing that race and other factors, they do intersect. When you think about equity, we have other populations that have been marginalized within our school system. And so we want to make sure that we are paying attention to different ability learners. We want to pay attention to language issues. We want to students that live in poverty. And so we want to make sure that we actually are addressing other systems or other groups of students that have been marginalized. And then when you think about inclusion, inclusion is really that overall effort and consideration to make sure that every student feels comfortable, safe, and included in their classrooms. When I was talking with our district leadership team earlier this summer, I kind of thought about our equity work within systems change, because we know that if we don't actually address systems, all we're doing is addressing individual situations. And so how do I view and think about the overall support system to change? There's three different components. One, there's individual work. Each person, each employee in Lake Washington really does have a professional obligation to focus on professional growth and understanding of issues related to equity, racial equity, and systems of marginalization. And so it's important that each of us continues on that personal journey to better understand how our system has been accessible or not accessible to our students. We also have group work, so teams. We're always working in collaborative teams, professional teams. Each team has an obligation to collectively focus on issues related to equity, racial equity, and systems of marginalization, because our groups actually are decision-making bodies at times. When you think about a group of teachers talking about instruction and assessment, they're making decisions that directly impact students. And so we want those groups of professionals focused on our equity work in considerations of equity. And then we have organizational work. And so as an organization, Lake Washington has an obligation to provide collective voice and experience related to equity, racial equity, and systems of marginalization. and that our collective work must focus on changes, adjustments, and enhancements to our system. But it isn't that these are desperate pieces. They're really all, if you will, cogs of the wheel. They all are unique and individual of themselves, but they all interwork with one another, and they all have to actually work together for our system to grow and change. And so I want to talk a little bit about the individual work that I talked about. And so one of the ways that we talk about that individual work is the cycle of cultural competency, or another way to put it, humility. And so this is a cycle that starts with awareness, building of knowledge, working on skills to actually address cultural competency, and then being willing to take action and advocate for those that may have been marginalized by our systems. And so this is a cycle that we continue to work on as individuals, and as we grow and learn, this is a cycle that we go back to often. Our work around courageous conversations, the compass, really helps us to think about how do people enter into conversations as we think about issues related to race. And so you can see there on the compass, there's kind of 4 different ways that Courageous Conversations says that people come to these conversations. One is in a believing frame of mind, kind of thinking or analytical, acting, kind of taking action, or feelings. And so as you think about how you come into these conversations, this helps us understand why an individual might be talking about solutions or outcomes based on how they're entering the conversation. And as other people are identifying how they're entering the conversation, then it actually allows for an empathetic and very meaningful conversation, because we can actually understand the perspectives that people are coming to the conversation with. And then we also have agreements that have come out of our Courageous Conversations work about staying engaged. Be in the conversation, and it's okay to experience discomfort, which is that second agreement. When we're talking about issues of race, we know that those can be uncomfortable discussions, because we're hearing about people's perspective about a deeply personal situation. That can be uncomfortable, but that's okay. That's part of growing in empathy. That's part of growing in our understanding of one another. And that's actually what leads to safe and inclusive spaces for our students and staff. Speaking your truth. At times, someone's truth might be hard to hear. At times, someone's truth might be different than yours. It also, you might disagree with their truth. And that's okay, because you're engaged in that conversation. You might be uncomfortable, but it's okay for them to be able to speak their truth and just leave it in that conversation. And we also know that conversations around race, that we have to expect and accept non-closure, that rarely do you end a conversation and it is concluded, because dialogue around race, it actually doesn't conclude. We always are just growing and learning, knowing that we're going to come back to the conversation at a later date to continue our work as an organization, as a group, as individuals growing professionally. And then when I think about the accountability aspect and some of the frameworks that we use for professional growth and evaluation for our administrators and our teachers, I pulled out a couple of quotes from the leadership framework that we use to work with our building administrators. It was designed by the Association of Washington School Principals. And it says, racially literate leaders actively pursue a deep understanding of their own individual racial identity, continually hone their ability to recognize structural and systemic racism, and courageously change the status quo. Developing and applying a skill set that identifies and engages families historically underserved is a powerful way for a school leader to assure a more equal opportunity to learn for each student in a school. So you can see, even in our leadership framework that we work with our building administrators, deeply rooted in our equity and racial equity work. And then for our instructional staff, Charlotte Danielson, the instructional framework for professional growth and evaluation, comment from that framework says that teachers strive for excellence, but a commitment to excellence is not complete without a commitment to equity. Each student deserves access to a world-class teaching and learning environment that promote joyful inquiry, intelligent rigor, and reflection. And when you think about our leaders and our teachers, thinking about their work with students and families in this way, you can see how that will lead to a more equitable and just school system for our students. One of the things that we are currently in the development phase of and will be releasing to our instructional staff, our teaching staff here in the next couple of days, is a paper identifying how do we think about welcoming our Black and brown students back to the classroom. When I think about the images that our students have been watching on the television, the national dialogue, the marginalization, and really the oppression that we have seen across the country of a number of our Black and brown community members, I asked Gloria Henderson and Matt Gillingham really to take a look at how do we document a best practices document to support our Black scholars as they come back into our classrooms. Because if I just think about what would it feel like to come back to class right now as a Black student, I might have some questions about, am I safe? Am I going to be welcomed into this classroom space? How is it going to feel? Are people going to ask questions? Are people just going to wonder and actually not ask questions? And so we're putting this together to help our educators think about how do we do this well, and how do we actually shine a light on a very important topic. And so you can see this document is titled Letting the Light Shine, Supporting the Brilliance of Black Scholars in Lake Washington School District. And we're proud to support our Black and brown students. And I'm excited about the work that's going on, and I'm excited to release this to our educators as we welcome our students back next week on September 1st. We also have that group work that I talked about. That's also an important part of our overall equity work. And so when you think about authentic community engagement, it's something that we are thinking about as a system, and we want to make sure that we actually are moving along the continuum of community engagement to make sure that all of our engagement isn't just in that kind of left side in form. We actually want to engage our families around consult, involve, collaborate, empower, because we know that when families are truly engaged in their child's education, that children learn better, they feel more connected at school, they feel a high level of meaning within their school setting. And so truly authentically engaging with our community is a critical part of our equity, racial equity, and inclusion work moving forward. I want to talk about our equity teams. We have both a district equity team and school-based equity teams. And so our district equity team, led by Gloria Henderson, our Director of Opportunity, Equity, and Inclusion. And a couple of things that we want to make sure that this team is helping to support this year is the development of policy for Lake Washington, providing insights, advice around the policy, and also taking a look at department level goals, which I'll talk a little bit more in a minute. But the idea of this group of individuals coming together with that equity and racial equity lens, providing feedback and perspective so that our policy and department work is as rich and meaningful as it can be. And then our building equity teams. Each of our schools is expected to have a building equity team. That work started a couple of years ago. And then we're going to make sure that this year moving forward to invite our parents to be members of those teams, because we know as we are having dialogue and conversation around issues of equity within our schools, to have a parent perspective is critically important. And to have parents of color providing feedback on those teams is also going to help those teams in our schools to be more equitable and accessible by our communities. And then system. When I think you heard the term earlier from the AWSP Leadership Framework, systemic racism. And when I think about that, it's not about any one individual, it's about a system, how that system was set up, how that system plays out, and who that system allows to most benefit from that overall structure. And so we want to make sure that our system is set up so that all 31,000 of our students can access our district, our system, our schools, our classrooms, and ultimately their opportunity to learn. And so I want to talk about a couple of things here, but I also want to frame this. When I think about our system, it isn't about fixing someone. It isn't about fixing a black or a brown student. It's about really addressing our system because those students are coming with assets. Those students are coming to us and they are ready to achieve excellence. And it's about how are we approaching the work to make sure that we are giving them every opportunity to be excellent, giving them the tools, the support, the challenge, the rigor, so that they can actually achieve that excellence. And so when I think about our work as a system, I think about it in an asset-based approach. So it's not about fixing, it's not about doing something to someone, but it's about how do we build upon the assets that our students are bringing, that our community is bringing to us, so that we can support and help students grow. And to me, an asset-based approach at the system level, it drives on the strengths of our community, our students, our parents, that it's opportunity-focused, it's internally focused and reflective. And we ask questions like, what is present that we can build upon? And it may lead to new and unexpected responses to community wishes. We never know what's going to come when we actually have a growth mindset, asset-based approach when we think about this work. And specifically to policy, the board is adopted a plan, a work plan of the board tonight on your consent agenda that really detailed out the work that you're going to do this year to adopt board level policy. And the school board owns and manages board policy. And what does it do? It defines values, actions, and behavior of the board. It defines your relationship with the superintendent, as well as the expectation for operations and results. And so the board is going to go through and develop an operational expectations policy specific to equity, knowing that these will be the expectations that you are evaluating, that you are expecting anecdotal and hard data on to make sure that the district is complying and really meeting those expectations. But we also are looking and will be adopting an administrative policy. And administrative policy is different from board policy. In its policy that you have delegated to me as superintendent, so I own and manage the administrative policies. And what that does is it defines the values, actions, and behaviors of the district. We look at state required actions of the superintendent and the school board within our administrative policy, but it's also about the specific operational actions and requirements for managing processes, procedures of the district. And so we'll also be adopting an equity policy in that phase as well. And then each of our departments is going to be setting goals specific to their job responsibilities and the work that they have influence over. And you've all heard of SMART goals, strategic, measurable, ambitious, realistic, and time-bound. Well, if you add an I and an E, we also want our goals to be inclusive and equitable. That's a critical piece to our department goals focused on equity. Because when you think about the system that we are thinking about and wanting to make as accessible and available to all of our stakeholder groups, it takes each and every department to meaningfully look at their work, the outcomes that they're producing in their departments, to actually put an equity lens on their work to make sure that the outcomes they're producing don't marginalize populations, don't marginalize historically underserved or underrepresented groups, because we want to make sure that all of our departments are doing their equity work as well. And so every person in Lake Washington has that personal work, They're doing that work as a group, and then our departments have outcomes as well. And so some of the work around that will be to review the plan template and reflect about how the department can consider systemic changes supporting more equitable outcomes. And that's very broad, but when you think about the number of departments and systems that we're talking about, it's important that each person takes the time to actually reflect about their own department and the outcomes that they're producing and how they can be more equitable. We're going to have each of our departments around their goals consult with our Director of Opportunity, Equity, and Inclusion along with their supervisor, and engage with our district equity team to gather insight to inform the goals and plans. And so when you think about having kind of a third-party input to be able to reflect on, to be able to provide perspective, that's an important part of our department goals, is so that we're gaining additional perspective, not just an internal perspective. We'll draft a goal and plan and submit that to their supervisor and the Director of Opportunity, Equity, and Inclusion for review, and really review and feedback. And then as we go, it's always about analyzing and revising goals and plans based on feedback and finalized for publication. And we will publish these goals so that our community understands what is the work that's going on at the systems level, because with so many departments, it's really challenging for us to be able to show everything. And so this is one way that we can actually be transparent in the work that we're doing. And then implement the plan and engage stakeholders throughout the implementation. And then share results and reflect. When we think about setting goals for ourselves, we also want to actually measure results and outcomes and be reflective of that so that we can then go back through this process as we continue our work. And then within our strategic plan, I just want to point out, actually, all of these items actually have equity work within them, but I'm just going to point out a few of the overall pieces of work that's going on in the district related to our overall commitment to equity. And so our work around culturally responsive teaching, actually training all of our staff members in the SIOP protocols is part of our work. Our work around developing multi-tiered systems of support focused on academics so that our schools have actual systems that they are responding to, analyzing student-level data, and we're actually taking action to support our students. And then at the very bottom, you can see our inclusive early learning initiative, really making sure that our early learning programs are inclusive and supportive of our students and our community. And then in the area of well-being, you can see here the multi-tiered systems of support focused on the behavioral, social, and emotional support, knowing that there is also data that we can be responsive to in this area as well, knowing that as students have outcomes in behavior or there's social emotional challenges, that data can be analyzed and we can actually provide supports as needed. The school equity teams that I just talked about, and then activities and athletics, actually analyzing who's participating and who's not, and how do we make sure that communities or groups of students that don't see themselves able to participate in our athletics or activities programs, that we actually are developing an understanding of why and taking steps to make sure that those are accessible. Because we know when students are connected to their schools in a number of different ways, and in our activities and our athletics are primary ways that students find connections, that the outcomes for those students are increased. And then when we think about our work around community engagement, I talked about our district equity team. We also, the idea of culturally responsive family engagement, ongoing work to develop systems so that we actually are engaging with our community on a much deeper level. Gloria Henderson, our Director of Opportunity, Equity, and Inclusion, is actually working with her team to think about how do we provide this level of culturally responsive family engagement to our communities, and how do we provide access to information and things like that, such as translation services and whatnot. And then excellent staff, our workforce diversity, actually paying attention to our recruitment efforts, our interview processes, the training that we provide to those that participate in interview processes, making sure that the questions that we are asking candidates aren't biased, making sure that our interviewers actually understand how do you hear responses and how do you understand the biases that you're bringing into the interviews. Because it isn't just about hiring more people of color. It's about diversifying our workforce because it creates a richness within our community. You saw at the very beginning of this presentation the overall makeup in relation to race of our students. And so when you think about the importance of students seeing educators and staff that look like them, there's great research that shows that that actually improves their vision for themselves, their identification of themselves being able to achieve excellence, and it also provides an opportunity for all of our students to experience individuals that are different from them as they go through our school system. I think about how important it is for any of our students to go through the school system and have very unique experiences with educators with multiple different backgrounds, race being one of them, as they go through our school system. I'm proud of the work we've done in this space, hiring a more diverse teaching staff, a more diverse administrative staff, because it provides that great perspective and outcomes for our kids when they see that there are individuals within our school system that they can relate to in terms of race and ethnicity, and that provides them with models of excellence. And so that's work that's always ongoing, and I'm proud of the work that we have done. And then when I think about the effective use of resources, our resources really define our equity work, and one of the ways we're doing that is through the analysis of our transportation systems, being thoughtful about how does transportation actually lead to better outcomes, because we know that systems such as these have been in place for a long time, and we want to make sure that as we think about transportation as a service, as a system leading to student outcomes, that we actually understand, does our system lead to marginalization of populations or communities? And if so, what can we do about that? So that's work that is ongoing right now within our system. And one of the things we've done for transparency is we've actually updated our website. And so there's two distinct parts of our website. Gloria Henderson, as our Director of Opportunity, Inclusion, and Equity, she has her department website. What you're seeing here is a new portion of our website, because equity isn't just Gloria's job. Yes, Gloria is a leader in this work. She's a valuable resource to our organization and is helping us think about our overall work. But leading and all of our equity work, that is everybody's responsibility within the organization. And so we developed a site that it's under the About Us section of our website. And so within there, you'll see a number of the pieces that I reported on tonight. You can see a statement here that I made to our teaching staff last Friday as I welcomed them back to the school year 2021. And so this is another place and space where people that have questions about our overall equity work, they can go to this space to understand some of the detail of what we're working on, and we'll continue to build this out to be transparent and communicative with our community. And that's my report on our overall equity work.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. Any questions from board members on anything you heard in the presentation tonight? Director Sage?
Yeah, it's not a question so much as a why I think this is going to work, because there's a commitment to two-way dialogue, continuing community involvement. One of the frustrations I have as a family advisor at Children's Hospital is I'll work on a project and then I might never know the outcome. I'm never contacted again. It's sometimes a one and done. But I feel the commitment here is to have that continuing dialogue and hearing from people and understanding their truth and hearing the courageous conversations and sharing, you know, feedback. And it's not just a one-time thing. And that's why I know that this is going to be successful for us, because we're invested, board and district.
Director Carlson.
So, John, thanks for the overview. And a lot of these are ongoing efforts. This has been an uncomfortable summer. And a lot of these are ongoing efforts where I'm glad that we were ahead of the curve and didn't discover equity with George Floyd's death. But at the same time, I feel like the urgency has been dialed up substantially. And I'm kind of curious, are there any, within the framework you've given us this evening, are there any pieces you could point to that are more of an increase in new pieces that have evolved in response to, so that people don't feel like we're just doing same old, same old? I know they're in there. I just wanted to give you the chance to call attention to what you feel is important.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. You know, one of the questions that I asked Gloria Henderson and Matt Gillingham, you know, a couple weeks ago is, what are we doing about the now? All of our systems work is great because that is long-term, and that's how you actually move a system to be more equitable no matter who's in place. And so it isn't about an individual, it's about actually adjusting systems to be more equitable. And so as I've engaged with a couple of our community groups, one of the things they've said to me is, I don't feel safe sending my child back to school. And so trying to understand what that safety means is one of the things that we've dialogued about. And so that's why kind of that briefing, that paper around how do we welcome our Black students into our classrooms, and just being explicit about it. That is one of the things that to me is important, because it demonstrates a value for the organization, and it's explicit. It's okay to talk about our Black students. It's okay to talk about how do we welcome them back in, because our job, yes, is all 31,000 students, and we know a portion of those 31,000 students are hurting. They're asking the question right now, am I valued? Does my life matter? I mean, those are important questions for us to answer. And so just being explicit with our organization that it's okay for us to talk about our Black students and talk about how do we welcome them in. Be transparent that they're saying they don't feel safe right now. So to me, that's part of the urgency. Also around our building equity teams, just putting out that we are going to have parents on our building equity teams. That was something that Gloria worked with our leaders around last year. We didn't fully implement that, and so that is one thing that I am just announcing. I let our leaders know last week that I would be announcing that tonight during the board meeting, because when you think about a school equity team, there's a huge missing link if you don't have parents and parents of color sitting at the table to be able to provide perspective. When I think about our district equity team, really capitalizing on that resource, being in the room to provide us with that kind of third leg of the stool feedback around our district work, that's another kind of layer of urgency. And then when I think about our policy work, the board and staff are committed to implementing policy this year. And what is policy? Policy is that external statement of values. It's that commitment to ensuring that this is work that is so important to us, we're actually going to make statements around our expectations and measure it. So that's just a couple of things that I would point out as kind of the here and now, the urgency around that.
And just as a follow-up, there are some things that are long-term ongoing that are not easy. One of the things that I'm seeing a lot from the community is demands for a more inclusive curriculum or a more diverse curriculum. And I know that's important to us, but at the same time, It wasn't in the presentation this evening, and I was hoping you could make a brief statement on sort of timelines for some of the longer term issues.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to ask Associate Superintendent Mike Van Orden. He works with directly with our Director of Teaching and Learning. He can kind of give an update around that, some of the work that we've actually already done around this, but kind of ongoing work as well.
Yeah, so a few things. One, we're in the process of looking at social studies and ELA curriculum. And so Dr. Jen Rose and Gloria Henderson have been working together to do a couple things. One is to train our curriculum adoption teams in racial consciousness and how to look at materials for making sure that the materials are representative and don't include bias. They've also built into our screening tools, the tools that we use to evaluate our curriculum, criteria with which to evaluate curriculum. And then they're also looking, though, at the curriculum itself and what can be included in the curriculum. For example, in English language arts, as you can imagine, rich literature. And for so long, the literature in our programs have been predominantly and almost exclusively white. And so looking at authors and viewpoints. And so that'll be part of the curriculum adoption process and being much more aware of the role of people of color in our curriculum and our history. The other things that are happening that I think are just as important, just today, in fact, we were doing our first day of training with our teachers. And so I was kind of popping into the different rooms, and we had breakout rooms around social studies and English language arts and math. There were conversations that were happening there as a result of work over the summer from our planning teams about how to hold conversations about race in your courses. And so, for example, in social studies, the social studies lead who was presenting today was talking with all of the social studies teachers at a grade level about how they were going to incorporate racial awareness, a history of different racial groups into their curriculum this year. And so that's being woven in. And then I think, as Dr. Holman was mentioning as well, our equity teams and thinking about how our equity teams can be a sounding board for how we talk about race in our schools and how that intersects with our curriculum. The final thing I'd say, we've been talking about this for a number of years, and it's actually now coming to bear. There is a curriculum it's a required curriculum for social studies called Since Time Immemorial. It's curriculum that was developed many years ago that addresses our indigenous populations. And so that will be curriculum that comes along with our social studies curriculum as well, and that will be fully implemented. And for the past couple of years, Dr. Rose has been building and training for our teachers around that curriculum. So those are some concrete things. I think longer term, there's lots of work to do. I know there's been some work just starting in our libraries to make sure our libraries are more representative. But again, looking at all of our curriculum, if we're on a 10-year adoption cycle, there may be things that are a little bit too far out to wait for an adoption, and so could there be earlier reviews that happen. And then the other thing I think just as important and will be a part of our conversation later this evening is how do you start bringing students to the table in reviews of curriculum, particularly students of color, and listen to their voices as we're doing our curriculum adoption process. So those are a few of the things that we're working on. Some really great work, again, as a result of the partnership with Dr. Rose and Gloria Henderson around equity in our curriculum and teaching and learning.
Thanks, Mike.
Director Bleasner.
Go off mute. There we go. First off, thank you for the overview and all the different components that are going on and sort of highlighting where this is playing out in the upcoming year and going forward and where it's been. As I listen to the different things, so you have the district equity team as well as the school equity teams. I'm curious as to where students fall out and being able to be part of those school building equity teams and the district equity team so that their voice is being incorporated through that as well. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I actually might invite Gloria Henderson to speak about this. Having student voice in all of our work is a critical aspect to actually moving our work to be more responsive to student desires, needs, and outcomes. And so to me, it's a part of our overall work, and it's part of the overall equity work on the equity teams at our schools. I think we also have to think about models for what does that look like for an elementary student, what does that look like for a middle school student and a high school student. Kind of step one was to bring our parents on board, make sure that they are participating on our equity teams while we also are thinking about how do we engage our students. I can't speak for the district equity team and how we're thinking about engaging students, although I know every time we're thinking about our work, we're thinking about what's the feedback our students would give us. And so giving them a seat at the table is pretty important as well. So that's kind of how we'll think about it at the school levels. I know we're going to have to identify and develop models to make sure that the work we're doing with students are age appropriate and considerate of the different levels.
And I would like to say, I would guess I would place that as a very urgent now action to be taking. We have students who are writing to us at the board for their public comments and speaking through that. And this has been, at least over the last 2 years, I've heard much more. And so we should be opening that door to civic engagement and at the table wherever we can through whatever means. So greatly appreciate that. The other piece, and I don't know when this will play out, is in regards to some of the programmatic pieces that have always had equity components attached to it. When we look at disaggregating data, I think enrollment within our choice schools have always been slightly skewed. Enrollment in the Quest program, enrollment in, or even disciplinary practices. How will that play out through this?
And I just want to make sure I'm answering your question. So when you say how will it play out, like will we continue to analyze or, because to me, let me try and answer it and then you can tell me if I'm missing the mark. When I think about, so we have individuals that are tasked with supporting and leading our, let's say, choice schools. And so then if we're writing a department goal around choice schools, then I would expect that that equity goal would talk about inclusion. It would talk about representation. It would talk about, we would actually set goals and identify specific strategies that we would work towards so that our choice schools are more representative of our overall demographic within our school district. And so will the analysis be part of our work? Absolutely. And that's, I think, why the department goals are so important, because there's so much work going on always. And if everyone is taking an equity lens, being thoughtful about that work, actually engaging with Gloria and others around this work, then I think that's how one of the ways we can actually move the system to be more equitable.
And I appreciate that. And what I will say is, over the last 8 years as I've been on the board, we've had lots of discussions and have tried things. Mm-hmm. And I will say that we have not succeeded in what we have tried. They've made small changes. So I do think the other urgency here is really the paradigm shift. And I think we're getting there with a variety of the different components of the more holistic approach, not programmatic, because I do believe holistic is the way to do it. So I just think it's something we're going to have to continue to work on, and how you prioritize. And maybe as the board goes through some of the equity plan and work we're doing, that can help to provide some of the other pieces to it. I just don't want to lose those pieces.
Absolutely.
Mark and then Cassandra.
Quick question, John. Regarding the choice schools, do you think we'll have a plan for helping to raise the participation percentages at the choice schools before the next lottery?
So similar to what Siri was just asking about, and I think that department really does need to analyze what's been tried in the past, what are other districts doing, are other districts actually getting more equitable representation and outcomes in their programs of choice. And so like Siri said, we actually have tried a number of things over the past few years to try and actually have greater representation within our choice schools. those haven't worked. They really haven't moved the needle. And so to me, it's about evaluating, but it's probably also about studying what others have done, because the things that we have tried really haven't worked, which is important to know. And I applaud the effort, and I was part of those efforts, but they just didn't have the outcomes, kind of what you're pointing to, Mark. And so that's definitely part of that department level planning that we need.
Right. I just didn't know if perhaps by setting a deadline, a goal time, whatever, that could perhaps push the planning, if you will, and analyzing and comparing, put it on a schedule, if you will, as opposed to having it go on and on and on. Yeah, the intention around our goals, SMART goals they truly are time-bound and measurable, and so we don't want goals that are, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years out. We actually want goals that are, 6 months, 9 months, a year, so that teams can actually do their work and that we're achieving the outcomes that we want. So I totally agree, Mark, that we don't want these just to be in perpetuity ongoing efforts, because there is an urgency around this work. Well, no, it's an urgency, but also after you take too much time, then people start to not take it seriously.
Yeah.
Director Sage.
As a board member, I just wanted to say that this is lifelong work. This work doesn't end at the end of a year or 4 years. This work is lifelong work for all of us. And it is, the piece that I see that is really going to make the difference is to continuously be engaged with different members of our community, so that we always are engaged with as many members of our community as will engage with us, because this work doesn't end. I'm working on this separately with Eastside Pathways using the Courageous Conversations model. We're trying small tests of change right now. And, and we will continue, because this work has no end date.
I have I think a follow-up question on Director Bleasner was asking about how this works through how this work will manifest in our curriculum review process. I guess my question is, when we have future curriculum review presentations to the board, should we expect to be seeing in the future, as part of that presentation, that group will present to us how it thought about this through an equity lens, about the curriculum adoption? I just want to understand that a little bit better, of how. I understand that even the process of is ongoing, but I'm hoping you can give me a little bit more on what we should expect to see in here.
Yeah, Mike, do you want to share?
Yeah, just briefly, and you may recall in our last adoption presentation, Dr. Rose was explaining about, for example, I think it was our science curriculum, how the fact that the curriculum was constantly updated, it included actual articles that were by people of color and about people of color, and they were able to adjust it. So that was just a small fraction. If I'm hearing correctly, what you'd like to see more is, specifically what were the criteria that were used to evaluate the curriculum? How is the curriculum representative of different racial groups? What were some of the thinking that the group went through? So that absolutely could be part of the presentation, and it should be maybe just a standing portion of our presentations for future adoptions. We have them every year, so it wouldn't be hard to put that in and make it a part of it.
Okay. And then the other question I had, Mike, you touched on this briefly. You said that there was thought about how do we work students into this process more, and I think we've heard a lot of great comments from students. I think in many ways the students are actually ahead of us on what this equity work looks like. It sounded like you're just having these. Can you give us a little more on what the thinking is right now, or is it really just in the preliminary stage? I'm kind of curious.
No, here's the thing. Because we're in this interesting situation where everybody's remote, and we're doing our adoption work remotely as well, students can actually participate much more readily. before, we do have actually students on our instructional materials committee, as you may recall. They're standing members. They come to our evening sessions, but they have to drive here. They have homework to do. Because we're doing curriculum reviews remotely, we can actually have students on a Zoom call, and it's much more convenient for them. Now, so that's short term. I think longer term, there's that logistics question, which has really been the barrier. But ideally, they're sitting at the table. So our adoption committees can be anywhere from 10 people for some of our secondary adoptions up to 30 or 40. But what I would recommend, and what I think we should probably do, is just like for our instructional materials committee, our students are sitting members of that group. They're reviewing the materials just like us. They're part of the discussions, and they will have insights that will add to the conversation. So I can give you an example. When we do have our instructional materials committee meeting and we have students at the table, they're sitting right there in the debates around materials, in the discussions, adding their perspectives. And so that would be a similar process for an instructional review committee. And again, it's the logistics sometimes of the frequency of the meetings and making sure it works with their school schedules. So that's one part. The other part is, as you know, when we do curriculum reviews, we have our students actually try the materials and give us feedback. And so one area that might be intriguing there is to ask them very specific questions about how the curriculum represents them. Do they see themselves in the curriculum? Also, to disaggregate the student responses by racial groups. And so I think there's some really great ways to involve students moving forward. And we actually had, I think it was, trying to remember her name, one of our students just recently emailed and said, hey, I want to see more curriculum that's more representative. And so the response was, hey, we'd love to have you maybe be part of our curriculum committee. So I think what we want to do is be thinking about how do we reach out to students, particularly students who have already expressed interest, and then actually formalize the process where students are sitting on our adoption committees. As we return to school and we have people sitting at a table, then we'll just need to think about how do we make sure students can participate and are welcome and can be part of that process. Personally, what I would say is sitting at a table, having conversations like this has as much value as anything we do in education. It's part of our civic process. And so I think there's a real strong statement that could be made there for creating opportunities for students to even be at the table like they would be on a field trip when we're in person and doing curriculum adoption. So really exciting opportunities there. And like I said, with us being remote, I think this is something. There's not a lot of upsides to our current state, but this may be one of them where students actually can be more involved more conveniently.
I agree. I'm really hopeful. I'm excited to hear that too. I'm glad I asked that question. Thank you, Mike. Director Carlson.
So thanks. There's one last big long-term issue that I know we've had on our radar for many years, but there's a certain degree of urgency that's been brought to my attention, and that is our workforce diversity. I know we've been trying for many years, but it hasn't shifted the needle a whole lot. And John, can you just tell us a little bit more about where we're going with recruitment and retention?
Yeah, and one of the things I could do is actually bring a specific update around our workforce diversity, because I don't want to overstate or understate for the board. What I know is that over the last 4 to 5 years, we've significantly increased the diversity of our new hires, both administratively and in our teaching ranks. And so, but when you think of a system of 2,000 teachers and you're hiring, 200 to 300 new teachers a year, and you're hiring about 20 to 25% people of color, the needle doesn't move too quickly. And so, we're aware of that. So I think seeing the year-over-year data would be helpful to see the efforts, and we can kind of talk about, like, how did we actually accomplish hiring a more diverse workforce in the year-to-year when we weren't able to for so long. And then what were some of the strategies administratively that we used as we thinking about hiring excellence and having candidates of color even consider working in Lake Washington?
Yes, and thanks. I don't mean this to be an off-the-cuff answer.
Yep,
I would definitely
absolutely.
like to see that. So thank you.
Director Sage?
Yeah, I don't know if this is possible at this very moment, but I wondered if Dr. Ross could introduce herself. Not sure if that's possible, but being directly linked to human resources, I just thought if we could see you and hear you and just know, just a tiny bit, that would be great.
Well, good evening, and it is possible because so much is possible in the remote space. I am a firm believer that we make the best of whatever situation that we have. We're expecting that of our teachers, and we want that for our kids. So absolutely, it's possible. Joy Ross, excited to be here as the first Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Every time I say that, I get emotional. I think about my mom and my aunt and how pleased and proud they would be. You wouldn't be able to talk to my mom right now. Originally from the Bahamas, have worked in several countries and multiple states. This is year 32 in education. So this gray hair is earned. And I'm excited to be here. This is day 38 and I'm counting only because I can, because it's fun. And I have never worked in a school district that has been consistently focused on drilling down deep with the application on equity. We have all lived long enough to know the theoretical applications and the easy things to do. But each and every time I'm on this board meeting, I text John and I'm like, John, this is good stuff. And I'm a little strange, so I put that out there, but it's clearly a interrogation, a request for a deepening of application, and I think that's a commitment to where we are. The reality is, though, that people of color who look like me have been here forever, and so it's not a summer, it's not the last 6 months, but it's been lifetimes. And so whatever I can do in terms of those conversations, in terms of the commitment to work, count me in. I have signed up. So thankful to be here and excited to be a partner in this work.
Thank you so much. Appreciate hearing from you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sage. Any other questions from any board members or any comments on the presentation tonight? Okay, excellent. Thank you all. Dr. Holman, thank you very much for putting together that presentation. I think it is really helpful for the board. And I would like to echo, I can't remember if it was Director Carlson or Director Sage who asked for a presentation on our efforts, our recruitment efforts for staff, but I would second that.
And Eric, before we move on, I don't know if Gloria is at her computer. I want to just give her, if she has anything that she would like to say about this work. She is so deeply invested. If she wanted to say any words, Matt Gillingham works directly with Gloria. If he wants to talk at all about kind of this ongoing work, and particularly in Gloria's department and some of the things that they are working on, Gloria is in this work all day, every day. The amount of outreach that she gets from students and staff and parents, kind of bearing their soul and experience, she shoulders a significant amount for our school district in terms of the emotional baggage and emotional weight that comes with a lot of these stories and experiences. And so we greatly appreciate what Gloria has done. We value the partnership that we have with her in this work. And I told her I'm committed to this work to support her in this, but also to support our organization in this, because it can't be, this is Gloria's issue. We all have to own this issue, own this work, because without complete ownership by our school district collectively, the needle's not going to move on any of this work. And so she is a primary consultant for us. She's an advocate. She's a critic. And we greatly value what she has provided to us as a leadership team, as a learning organization, as we continue to do better for our students.
Gloria, I know you were dealing with an emergent situation earlier when John was off camera, so I don't know Your hand's up, so it looks like you may be here now. I can't tell. John, when your computer went down earlier, Gloria let us know that
Okay.
she was having to deal with something and did not know if she would be able to
Okay.
chime in tonight. So, okay, we will. Sorry, Director Carlson, your hand is still up. Did you have one more question or comment before we move on to the next agenda item?
Actually, yeah, it as a quick one. So this is great. I appreciate it, but it's a lot of high-level vision. John, when can we expect to see more equity, or when can the public expect to see more equity at a board meeting?
When you say more equity at a board, like reports on equity?
Basically, yeah. I mean, when can they expect to see that this isn't just a one-off, that this was August 24th, and we'll hear again from you in January? But so what's the time frame for the public side of this?
So I'm going to answer that two different ways. I think we should be reporting on our equity-specific work to the board in regular reports. But I think you should also be hearing about our equity work as we are presenting about all of our work. And so the equity lens that we should be applying to our work should also be part of our considerations that we're presenting to the board. And so to me, it's not an either or, it's both. And so you just asked for kind of a diversity in hiring report. And so we'll bring that back to the board, either the next meeting or the following meeting. But to me, those are just ongoing reports that we provide to the board for a couple of reasons. One, to highlight the importance. Two, as the board is also thinking about policy, I think it's going to be important for the board also to get an understanding of what is some of the data that's currently present as you start to develop your board's policy. So it's an and here.
Good.
I see Gloria's hand up, Eric. Gloria, if you're available to talk.
Yeah, it went up. I'm wondering if she was trying to signal she was not available.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, we will move to the next agenda item, which is the last item on our non-consent agenda is the return to school task force update. Dr. Holman, could you lead us through that?
Absolutely. I commented to our cabinet today that I am so proud of our organization for the work that we have done collectively over the last number of months preparing for September 1st. I think we are a model for the planning and preparation. I know there's still questions to be answered and work to be done, and we have done such a tremendous amount. I hope our community feels that we've been transparent and communicative because the work has been tremendous, but we are honored to do this work for our community and for our students because no matter what format our students are learning in, the bar that we set for ourselves is excellence and greatness for our students and our staff. And so we've provided return to school task force updates to the board throughout the summer. And tonight we have a presentation around our child care that will be implemented with the start of school. And so when I think about our work for our families and students that otherwise wouldn't have a rich experience in their academics during the day because either both parents had to be out of the home for work and whatnot. I'm just really happy that we're able to provide a child care model that allows space for students to do their academic program in during the day. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Associate Superintendent Barbara Postumus to provide the board with an update around child care.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. I'm going to share my screen and pull the PowerPoint up. And yes, we've been talking about childcare since really the schools we had to close in March, and we quickly pivoted to provide childcare for essential workers in the spring and summer. And And ever since the end of July, we've been working to provide childcare for those staff and families that are going to need support while we're doing our remote learning. So I've just got a few slides tonight, and I just want to again connect this to our operational expectation 9, where we want to continue to provide the board with communication on how we're engaging the community on information about what we have available, and tonight it's childcare. So I just want to remind the board, during a typical school year, we provide before and after school care at every one of our elementary sites, and we serve over 1,600 students. And so what we have been working since the end of July is to provide full day childcare in our buildings for those families and staff that need it. And again, it's to provide emergency or critical support for families. We opened registration for these programs last Monday. So the registration's been open a week. This is a snapshot of our website. There's a link under the COVID-19 section of our website to childcare resources. On the website lists all the current locations that childcare is available, the providers, and the website also includes other providers that may provide services outside of the district buildings, such as care for preschool age students or middle school students, so that there's additional information on our website as well. Every provider, we've been working with the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club and district staff. All of our providers will be providing financial assistance to those families who need it. So right now we are offering care in 11 school locations. We have multiple locations in each of our high school, what you might think of feeder patterns. So in the Juanita Learning Area, we have 3 locations right now that we're offering care at, or opening registration, 3 in Lake Washington. In addition, the Kirkland Boys and Girls Club is offering care at their location. The Redmond Learning Area, we have 3 elementaries, and Eastlake we have 2, but in addition, this Boys and Girls Club is offering care at their site. So a total of 11 school locations right now. I will say though, depending on how registration comes in, we may need to consolidate locations based on, we do have a low registration at some of our sites, so we may need to combine locations, or we may need to add locations if there's additional demand. So right now, all programs will comply with the Department of Health rules. The rules do allow up to 22 individuals per space. Our providers are providing, though, a low staff to student ratio of 1 staff member to anywhere from 9 to 12 students. They will provide care in our gyms, our commons, and then our shared learning area. The goal is not to have more than 40 to 60 students per site to maximize efficiencies. We also will, parents will drop off and pick up students outside. All staff and students will have their temperatures checked each morning, and we also will provide each staff and student cohort, so that ratio of 1 to 9, 1 to 12, those staff and students will stay in the same cohort. That way, if there is a COVID case or something, then we can isolate that group of staff and students. There will be regular sanitizing and cleaning at the daycare locations. And then just the other thing, just a reminder, is that during remote learning, again, these sites are not staffed with individual teachers, they're childcare staff members. And so those childcare staff members can assist students in their access to remote learning, but they're not going to provide one-on-one tutoring or direct instruction or teaching. So right now, as of this morning, we've received about 229 registrations. We have some sites with as low as 3 families registering, and some as high as 38. So we may need to consolidate sites. If that's the case, we'll contact families this week. And then if as demand increases, because maybe once the school year starts, more families may want some additional care, then we could expand as well. So that is what we were planning. So I encourage families and staff that are interested in childcare to go to our website, look at what's offered. There's, again, information for those families that need financial assistance. That information is on our website as well. So any questions? That's my short, very short presentation about childcare.
Director Sage?
Yeah, I think I remember seeing text messages coming to families about childcare. I know we've continued to receive meal information. Mm-hmm. Am I correct that I also saw a childcare text?
I will have to, I asked that question. I don't know if we've sent out text messages on childcare. I will find out if we've done that. I know it's on our webpage, and we have put it in our, the last 2 weeks, it's been in our family communication letter. It's been in our staff communication letter.
Right. Okay. That would be just one more way to try and let families know. And I know there's a lot of concern about childcare because I hear about it almost daily.
Great.
So thank you for looking into that.
All right.
Any other questions on the presentation? No. Okay. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Dr. Holman, is there any additional update on the Return to School Task Force?
No, there's not. That's the only topic we had tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next item on our agenda tonight is the superintendent report. Dr. Holman, do you have a superintendent report tonight?
I don't know if you remember, but at the last meeting I said that my superintendent report was going to be on equity efforts, and so I think I provided significant comments tonight, and so I will just say this. I'm proud to engage our organization and community in this work. I think it makes every student more successful to have a system that is accessible and meaningful and safe and inclusive for all of our students. And that means all of our students. And so I'm proud of the work that we are engaged in, and I know that this is urgent work. I know that this is work that can't wait for tomorrow, and so we will continue to do that work in the short term and that systems work that really is long-term work.
Excellent. Director Sage, your hand is raised. Was that from last time, or do you have another question? No, it went down. Okay.
I put it down, sorry.
Okay. The next item on our agenda for tonight is board member comments. Do any board members have any comments for tonight? Director Sage?
Should have just kept my hand up. Just an update on the legislative rep work that I've been embarking on. I have 2 more meetings coming up next week with Senator Dingra, and actually one this week with Representative Tai, which will, being a former school board director, she will have a lot to say, I imagine, about our current state of opening schools and remote learning and all of that. So the Legislative Assembly, no, it's called General Assembly now, not Legislative Assembly. General Assembly handbook is out. I will make sure, if I haven't already sent it, I will send it to all of you. I believe it starts September 25th. Right now is a window to submit an amendment if we so choose. I did not see anything when I went through the, must be 100 different proposals or amendments, proposed amendments. But if you do, please let me know. And then Siri might want to weigh in. She is working on a sort of a survey so we can organize ourselves according to our values. I'll let her speak about it if she would like to.
So if you remember last year, we just did a quick survey around priorities so that when we do the General Assembly, you have the opportunity to know sort of where the board stood across those things. So not only did the board put what were the items that were prioritized, but staff also weighed in on that as well. And we were able to put together, basically it was the foundation for our legislative priorities and platform going forward, starting with the WASDA positions. So I'll just put, it'll be SurveyMonkey like it was the last time, and you'll just respond to it and that will just summarize it forward.
Which is fantastic because I don't really know how to create a survey like that. So thank you for taking that on. But you will be hearing more. In particular, there's 8 amendments that large school districts were sort of suggesting we take special note of. So I will email you those 8 in particular amendments that are up.
And they also, go ahead.
I was just going to say, related to that, actually, you know what, Director Bleasner, go first, and then I have to tell someone to be quiet, and then I'll be right back.
Okay. So during this last week, we've had the caucuses that WASDA holds. So we had our Director Area Caucus on Monday, we had the Large School Caucus on Wednesday, and then the Equity and Access Caucus on Thursday. So I'll forward out the notes from the Equity and Access Caucus. There actually is a rather large amendment to the current educational equity statement that was put forward and accepted by the Delegate Assembly last year. So something just to be aware of. And then the other pieces is really digital access for the upcoming year was sort of a big component in discussion with the educational equity thing, and funding would probably be the other big piece and concerns about what was happening there and the equitable status of that. So that was sort of the big things on the caucus.
And those are a couple of things that I've been discussing with legislators because they are, you know, big issues, and, you know, the transportation funding and seeing the needs, you know, what have we spent on COVID to date and what are we projecting, which Barbara has been very helpful in providing that information. So it just, you know, kind of keeps us in contact and shares what our concerns are in our district. And I'm looking forward to getting that legislative platform figured out so that it can be more effective.
Director Sage, John reminded me the other day that we need to designate our delegate for the General Assembly. I just wanted to confirm you're able to attend the General Assembly on September 25th.
Yes, I believe I've already registered. And I think they're making it free this year.
I just wanted to make sure, and I figured I do now. Okay. I have a question for the board that I'll. Oh, sorry, Director Bleasner, your hand was still raised. Did you have anything else?
You can go first.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't notice. We've received a number of public comment from students in the last few months. Typically, the board does not. Public comment is not a conversation, and so I have not on behalf of the board, and I don't think any other board members have responded directly to the students' their public comment, nor do the comments necessarily request a response. But you know, I'm curious if the board has any thoughts on whether you know, when we do receive public comment from a student, you know, if one of our students is taking the time to write to us, whether that is something where we want to maybe engage a little deeper than we normally would with public comment. You know, obviously, if we receive an email directed to the board from students, we respond and have that conversation. But I'm curious, you know, what people think. And it is sort of a different environment right now too, when we're receiving written public comment as opposed to students or community members coming to our meeting. So just wanted to get everyone's thoughts on that. Director Sage?
I don't know, was Director Bleasner gonna say something along those lines?
No, I have a new point, so we'll
You have a new point,
with
okay.
this one first.
I think since we have a focus on civics as a state, since it is now a graduation requirement, if the time is available, I think it would be great to acknowledge their submission, thank them. It is a process that we hope that, you know, our students will continue to be engaged in throughout their life, and I think that probably warrants an acknowledgement, if nothing else.
Yes, I would agree. Okay, yeah, absolutely.
And I would second that point of view. The students, this is possibly their first time they're interacting with representative government, and expecting them to understand the rules of our standard public comment period and what to expect of it. I figure we should answer students. The rest of the comments, if they're submitted as a board comment, I treat them as board comments. But for students, I've replied to a couple of them where I happen to know the kid one way or another, but I have not been systematically doing that.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll make sure that we're getting a response to every student who takes the time to write public comment, and we can, as a board, I'll delegate if need be for those. But let's make a point of responding to all. Okay, thank you. I wanted to.
If I could just add to that, I would say I think that's great. I would also encourage, though, that we would go even to the others who are doing public comment as well, because yes, our students, I believe any community member who's taking that step really should have the opportunity. I do think that's oftentimes where we refer to staff, because it oftentimes needs a request from staff, or if there's something going forward. So I think it's a great step. Let's start with students, but we should also just be thinking about how we just ensure there is a response back in that environment. And I know we do that in coordination with administration.
That's right. Okay. So I guess for now, Diane, I know you're listening in. If you could, when we receive, if public comments are directed to you in the future, if you could, let's, we'll talk about how to best do that. But I think right now, I probably just want you to forward them to the board. Let's just forward to the board alias, and we can go from there. That's my initial thought, but we can talk about if there's a better way to handle that. Okay. Any other? Oh, sorry, Director Bleasner.
Yeah. So actually, the one piece with the whole pandemic, COVID-19 reopening, there is a group of about 10 board members who are meeting of our 5 surrounding districts, and we have also met with superintendents of those as well, in which to be able to talk directly with public health and with the executive on that side in order to help sort of set up that partnership that needs to occur in order for the reopening of schools and the mitigation and what's needed in regards to testing and contact tracing and all of that. So lots of good things happening there. There's been a lot of prep work. We got the guidelines and the metrics that were kind of a key piece coming out of DOH, and now looking towards a toolkit to come forward and be able to help support openings. And that's not only in benefit to us, but actually in benefit to the whole state in many ways, especially out of DOH as well as out of King County. So just want to give you a heads up that that's some of the background that's also going on to help with that reopening piece from that side.
And we did also have one meeting where we asked for all districts in DA2, which is rather large, sort of, King County, to weigh in, because we know that what's happening in South King County right now is not the same pattern of the virus that we are necessarily seeing here. So to get their input was very valuable.
Thank you for reporting back.
And one other piece, and so I had mentioned this prior, was I know we have not done it. The board self-assessment has typically been something we would do. It is part of our policy. We have not done it this year. And Eric, you are looking around, so you're on mute.
I am. You brought this up to me. Thank you for raising it now. I'm going to cut you off real quick. I believe it is on our work plan for December or January. So we're doing it a little bit later than we would normally have done it, but it is still on the work plan. Dr. Holman, I saw you nod when I said that. Does that comport with your memory?
Sorry, I have to turn all my microphones on. Yes, it is on the work plan. I just don't remember exactly where it lands. Again, we can move it around, but making sure that there's time for board members to take and then actually have dialogue and discussion around it probably is a December, January timeframe, just knowing what the first 3 months of the work plan already looks like.
Absolutely. The challenge is, so we did postpone it from last year is the whole component, so that we did not actually do it within that time frame. The pandemic hit, and so the retreat got canceled. That was the plan, to do it at that March retreat. Not a problem, but just wanted to make sure that it was on the agenda, because that is a key part of our just paying attention to what we're doing as a board. And those standards actually do have a lot of strength in the equity component that we're speaking to in the community engagement and in that relationship building. So a piece I might encourage, and so something to think about from the board side, is that we actually do just take it as a minimum. So we have the data point from every year, because we've currently done it in the past years. You can watch for trends. It actually is really beneficial. And it gives us something that we can use. WASDA also will facilitate a workshop virtually, about 2 hours, in which to walk through that and setting up work plan and plans going forward. So just wanted to put that out, that was a key component that we've lost, but that's okay. I recognize it's back on. Just let's not lose it again.
I agree. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay. And then we will wrap up. So it should be noted that board meetings in September may be adjusted pending changes in the governor's orders regarding Open Public Meetings Act. Information will be updated on the district's website as soon as this information is known. The next scheduled board meeting and study session will be held on September 14th. And the study session will begin at 5. I have on here that the study session will begin at 5 p.m. and the board meeting following at 7, but that may be adjusted. Or is that still our plan, Dr. Holman? Can you remind me?
So that's our typical pattern when we're meeting in person. If we meet remotely, then we'll flip those and do the board meeting first and the study session after. Okay.
So for those watching at home, we'll see, TBD, but my expectation is that is what will occur, and that that the board meeting will be first and the study session will follow.
And it might help to put that out in some kind of a communication, because I have heard from several community members it's hard to know when to tune in to get a board meeting and not a study session. So we might want to be able to clarify that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. All right, we will figure out the best way to do that. But for those who are still watching now, I think it's everyone's expectation that this board meeting will commence, it's a big word, will start at 5 p.m. On the 14th.
So as soon as we receive an updated proclamation from the governor, then we go and we have the website updated to reflect that. And then anyone who's subscribed to our board meeting feed, then they receive an email, I think it's Friday evenings, with an updated agenda and things like that, which also references the times of the meeting. So that's typically how we've communicated. And in these times, as soon as we know about an updated proclamation, we're going on the website to do those updates.
Yeah, we have a lot of community involvement now, that people that might not have, gotten the email step. So any way to communicate that, I know it's been a little bit of a source of frustration for some people, not knowing they were going to listen to, an hour of study session that was not part of the board meeting. So they were trying to tune in for the part that they wanted. So just some feedback.
Thank you, that's helpful. Okay. I will now entertain we've reached the end of our agenda, so I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the August 24 board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Bleasner and seconded by Director Carlson that we adjourn. All of those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. We have a study session tonight following this meeting. For those viewing at home, I understand there's on the same webpage, there's another link to launch, if you want to watch at home, to launch that. Dr. Holman, is the call-in information the same though for those who are wanting to listen by phone?
Yes, I'll just leave the line on but muted until we start the study session. So yeah, it's the same exact number. Excellent.
Okay, thank you. Board members, it is 7:11 by my clock here. 7:25, okay, for starting the study session? Okay, thank you. Okay, great. So I will see everyone back here at 7:25.